Well, it was another active weather day here on the 18th of February as another winter storm targeted areas of the United States. But what if I were to tell you that this weather pattern and this winter storm specifically was anticipated and forecasted over 6 and even 12 weeks ago? Almost down to the day that this storm was going to hit and where it was going to hit, as well as what the most likely outcome of that storm was going to be. I can say this because the weather patterns are actually cycling. What is initially thought to not be able to forecast much more than 10 to 14 days with some level of accuracy is complete garbage. You can forecast using this new methodology several weeks and even months in terms of large-scale weather patterns that would affect you down at the surface, including heat waves, droughts, severe weather outbreaks, hurricanes, and so much more, including winter storms like this one and past storms. I've made a handful of those predictions right here on this YouTube page where I have forecasted when these storms are most likely going to be coming back around and showing evidence and proof that the weather patterns are in fact cycling, and you can forecast several weeks and even months in advance. The weather pattern that's affecting us right now here in the middle of February and then as we head towards the beginning of March is the same exact weather pattern that hit us at the beginning and the middle of January. I talked about it here just a few days ago in this video right here, explaining how the possibility of another winter storm affecting areas of the Gulf Shore or down throughout the southeast is an increasing chance of happening as we head towards the beginning of March. This winter storm that had just happened here on the 18th of February is directly related to the portion of the pattern that happened 6 weeks ago on this date right here, which was the 10th of January, in a very similar location and a very similar storm, minus the extreme cold, set up over the same place. That weather pattern for the 18th and into the 19th of February is directly related, again, 6 weeks ago, as these same signature portions of the weather pattern at the upper levels of the atmosphere rolled back through. We had one wave rolling through the country as one was exiting. We had two coming in onshore, one south of Alaska, one in the Pacific Northwest. This was back in January, and that same exact weather pattern has happened again as two storms were coming in. One was over the U.S., and the third one was leaving. Now, this weather pattern is going to happen again 6 weeks from now, around the 31st of March, or right around there by a day or two. What happened a couple of days before this storm that we're dealing with right now in February was this storm right here that hit back on the 15th. If you were to go back 6 weeks from this storm, it would fall on this date right here for the 5th of January. Take a look at these two maps. You have again a storm up by Alaska, one coming in off the Pacific. You got one on land, a fourth one over there, polar vortex, Arctic air locked in way up to the north. This was back in January. Here we are in February, that Arctic air pushing a bit further down to the south as it is approaching a little sooner than it did in the prior cycle, but the same exact weather pattern is there. It's on land right now, the storm that affected us a few days before this 18th of February storm, two coming in, one leaving. So you're still seeing these same exact weather patterns that are happening over and over again. So again, we're going to be watching for this pattern to happen at the end of March and into the beginning of April. I've talked about it a couple other times on a few of the other videos on the YouTube page. That's just Stormy Weather NGP is the YouTube channel name. You can go check those out. But what's to happen over the next several days and into the next couple of weeks? Let's take a look here at the January pattern. This was the previous cycle that we're repeating right now in the middle of February. This storm hit on the 5th of January, and this storm that came through just a couple of days later on the 10th of January is the current storm we were just talking about a few moments ago that hit on the 18th of February. Now, what is to come is we will be watching again as Arctic air is locked in and pulling down to the central United States. We'll watch for another storm just a few days later from the 18th. This would be about 5 or 6 days later. 4 to 6 days later, we'll see another storm. And after that, we head towards the 19th and 20th and 21st for this winter storm that hit along the Gulf Coast and into Florida. I made a whole video specifically about this storm. It will be coming back around the 3rd of March. And behind that, there will be another storm that follows just a few days before. So lots of things to keep an eye on. Now let's compare this to the computer model and see if we see any similarities to these storms as we head into the beginning of March. What we will be watching for here over the next couple of days is one wave dipping down towards the southwest. This is lining up right with the same exact time period that the last storm came through, down throughout that area. We just have a lot more cold air in place than we did back then, so this storm system is actually probably going to get deflected much further south than it did in the prior cycle. There will be another storm system to keep an eye on that forms towards the end of March here, or end of February. This is it right here, and behind that we watch for that signature storm I talked about that brought snow all the way down to the Gulf Shore, rolling in at the beginning of March. And even our long-range computer models are hinting at a storm system coming way down there, so we're going to keep an eye on that and see what ultimately happens. Now, I'm not saying it's going to necessarily snow on the Gulf Shore, but those Gulf states will have a higher possibility of seeing another wintry impactful system, along with the cold weather that will be penetrating down towards the Gulf Coast towards the beginning of March as well. After that, there is one more storm system that comes in. We're looking way far out on computer models, so I get that they're riddled with errors, but it's a promising sign that it is at least picking up another large-scale trough dipping down through the southwest, which does again align with the LRC pattern that happened the cycle before. After this storm brought snow down towards the Gulf Coast, that we saw another large-scale trough digging throughout the southwest. So the model is picking up on the previous cycle, and that's how I know that the model is closer to being correct than it is complete la la land. So obviously we have to wait to see what happens, but it's a promising sign that the weather model is picking up on the previous weather pattern that had already happened. Let me know what you think about this down in the comments. I'd love to pick your brain on it. I'd love to answer questions on this and continue to provide more examples and proof of the LRC in action. Again, I'm going to continue to make more forecasts for outlooks, severe weather, and even hurricanes as we head deeper into this year and into summer right here on this YouTube page. So I would really love a like and a subscribe on this video, comments of what you think about it, and continue to follow along as I show you proof